Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing for you DragXDrive, or Drag and Drive, on the Nintendo Switch 2. This review was originally written by the wonderful PJ O'Reilly, and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling, let's dive right into things. DragXDrive is Nintendo's latest attempt to give us a unique sports game that utilizes their latest console's flashy tech. But this time, it's not just any old Wii Sports. If you've ever watched wheelchair basketball, you'll know how technical it can get, and DragXDrive takes this to the extreme. It's a brilliant choice of a sport to bring to life with mouse mode controls, and one that's been carried off with plenty of skill. The main issue is your mileage is going to vary based on how well you get on with these controls. We're not just talking about their implementation in the actual game, things like how thin and slightly uncomfortable the Joy-Con 2 are when they're on their side, how your wrists fare generally, and what sort of surface or space you're playing with. It all comes into consideration. But let's reverse that old wheelchair back for a second and go over what DragXDrive entails. Nintendo has gone with an arcade-style take on wheelchair basketball, which lends itself well to the game's 3v3 face-offs. Matches are action-packed 3-minute affairs, and there really isn't much room on the court, so you're always going to be in close proximity to your teammates and opponents. There's also a very pleasing dual-layered learning curve that needs to be approached and overcome before you can properly get yourself on the court. Simply getting used to playing the actual basketball by timing your runs, making passes, and choosing to play it safe or go for three-point baskets means there's plenty to take in and have a good time with. Then you have to consider that you're doing all of this in a wheelchair-like vehicle, as Nintendo calls them. If you're the type of person who enjoys crashing into things at precisely the wrong moment, ideally in games and not real life, you can be sure to have an absolute blast when wheeling around in one of these things at high speeds. And what's more, the controls aren't even necessarily a detriment. If anything, they kind of heighten the experience. In practice, playing on a table works well enough if you fancy doing it that way, but you can also use your legs as well when you're just sat down. It's far less hard on your hands and arms once you get used to it, and it's impressive that the tech manages to keep the controls so smooth whilst you glide over your presumably unironed trousers. Come on, I see you. The basic idea of the controls is that each Joy-Con pertains to one wheel, and so in order to move in a straight line, you need to slide both of them forward simultaneously, and then release them, move them back to the front. You've seen the trailers. This actually reflects the motion that you would do surprisingly accurately. I mean, it's still a video game, but, you know, come on, it's better than pushing a stick forward. Smooth and controlled glides help you gain speed, and this is very much a game where timing and grace are going to be absolutely integral when you're going for the big power moves and destroying your furniture and arms. You don't need to break into a sweat, you just need to relax and understand that the game has a sort of like upper limit of how fast you need to move, and it's not as fast as you think. Then you start adding turns and braking, and well, let's just say you can make some violently fast changes of direction, and all sense of zen goes out the window. Shooting is much simpler, as you need to simply throw up an arm and motion out a shot in real life, and as long as you're facing the basket, you should pretty much make it. Although don't think you can just be vaguely looking in the direction, you know, accuracy is definitely a factor. There's also a little bit of extra freedom to give players ways to be a little bit extra stylish with tricks and sexy half-pipe dunks. When it comes to defense, it's very much like you would in any other sport. You need to block lanes, get ready to tackle, you know, it's real sports stuff. Speaking of tackling, this only works when you hit an opponent head-on. You can slam into the back of them as fast as you like and nothing's gonna happen, but just a little tippy tap from the front and whoa, that ball will go flying out of their hands, sir. You've also got 3 different styles of player to choose from: guard, forward, and center, and they're basically little, medium, and large, and they have different stats pertaining to mostly their size. Realistically, the differences aren't exactly major, but it's nice to have that little bit of flexibility, and that flexibility goes double when you've got some customization there as well. Helmets, colors, textures. That's it. What this means is that if you want to get really flashy on court, you're gonna have to rely on doing some fancy flipping tricks. You can do things like tilting up on one wheel by braking and then lifting the controller off. It's a little bit awkward, but you kind of get used to it eventually. You can also like do it on the other side very quickly afterwards. You'll do a little bunny hop. You can do things like spins when you go off half pipes and over ramps. And if you do a spin over a ramp that isn't a half pipe, you'll actually get a little speed boost. It's all very swanky stuff. And when you do manage to pull one of these off mid-match, it is undeniably one of the most satisfying experiences you'll get. But unfortunately, the reality is some of the tricks don't come off smoothly enough. It still works, but you can't rely on it 100%, which is a shame because the game just drags you back in yearning for more. So it would be really nice if these were just a little bit more precise, just a little bit. Especially going straight on one wheel, like you've got to like brake after you lift it off. As far as I know, the game doesn't tell you this. I hate it. Thankfully, it's almost never useful in a match. All of this gives you plenty to work with as you launch into the 3v3 battles against either human or CPU opponents, with matches housed within an arena that can either be set to friend or public. This stadium is also full of side missions and challenges, most of which are designed to help you master the controls. A pair of extra little mini-games like racing to a checkpoint or chasing after a ball. You can do these between matches to keep things fresh, and that'll certainly happen in a public park, though you can choose to opt in or out of them entirely if you just can't be bothered. But going back to the challenges for the moment, some of these are ridiculously hard, and when you play them for the first time, you might be going, how on earth is this possible? But let me just come from me, little old Alex. If I can do them, and I've got all the trophies, you can too. You may swear, though. Having said that, it's not unreasonable to assume that some people will balk at just how little there is in the package in terms of separate modes of play. A single-player campaign would have been a really nice inclusion. There's still a good amount of game to sink your teeth into for the price of DragXDrive, if you are down for mastering it all. Turning to online, and this is where the game really shines. 6 of us from Nintendo Life managed to get together and play online all together, and it works really well. We did game chat, and it was absolutely easy peasy. We could hear everyone, talk to everyone, and as a result, there was a lot more sort of fun involved in that. You know, you could say, Felix, pass to me, and sometimes that might even be possible. When you set up a friend park, you can choose to have up to 12 players in the party, split so there are 2 3v3 games happening at the same time on separate courts, but within the same arena. You can also spectate if you wish, and if you want to get people who aren't on your friends list, you can also just sling them your room code, and in they come. That being said, don't look for any bells and or whistles here online or anywhere else. What you see really is what you get. There are no different match types or ways to mix things up besides the little mini-games we mentioned earlier, and even worse is that the public park lobbies don't allow you to play against random players online with a friend or friends in any way, or at least as far as we've been able to tell. It's either you play alone with randomers or you play with friends and maybe some bots. That's it. As mentioned earlier, in friend park lobbies, it's not as big a deal because you can share your park ID with whoever you choose, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. We'd really like to see Nintendo add a way in order to play with friends and random people online in the future, although realistically Nintendo have their own special way of doing things, so who knows? Another weak point in terms of options is a lack of customization in terms of controls, meaning you're stuck with the mouse controls, which can make jumping online a little bit daunting. Not to mention it fully excludes some players from getting involved. Taking everything into consideration though, and for the not enormous price point, there's more depth here than you might expect. DragXDrive feels like a proper attempt to give us something fresh in the same sort of vein as ARMS back on the Switch 1. If you manage to get into its groove, you will get your money's worth. One final word on the controls though, and this is coming from me, Alex. There was an instance where I had to take a several-hour break because it seems silly to say I was playing the game wrong, but I was playing the game wrong. The controls, I had my sort of wrists pronated and stuff like that, and they were starting to hurt like a lot. So I had to then just like stop for a while, and then a couple of hours later I tried in a different position and it was working fine. So listen to your body. If it's hurting, My god, stop. In terms of performance, it all runs absolutely perfectly. I've not spotted a single dropped frame. It just seems to work flawlessly as far as I can tell. Does have to be said though, in terms of presentation, it's a little bit barren, and it's a little bit of a shame that Nintendo's opted for this style. I mean, I think their robots, they're fine enough, and this sort of aesthetic it's fine, it works. But it's a little bit lacking in character, you know? And you're in the same stadium all the time. This stuff can be overlooked when the game is solid, though, and DragXDrive is certainly that. In the end, if you have some friends who are into it and you're willing to master the game, we have no hesitations in recommending this one. DragXDrive may lack options in regards to its online modes, and its controls take a little bit of getting used to. However, if you can give up some time to engaging with this one, if you can get past the barriers in terms of controls and the early frustrations as you find your rhythm, you'll be rewarded with a unique and very well-made sports game that deserves to find an audience of dedicated fans. Throw some chums into the mix and you've got a solid bit of fun for the price. DragXDrive, you're getting a 7 out of 10 from us. You've reached the end of the review. That means it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and I think it's been largely covered by PJ, to be honest. It's a really odd duck of a game. Like, I thoroughly enjoy my time with it, don't get me wrong. You know, the controls, when you get them down, suddenly start to feel like they make so much sense. But it does take quite a long time to get there, and you've got to be patient, because if you're not, you're gonna have a bad time. When I was playing with the other 5 from Nintendo Life, it was a glorious thing. It really, really was. Had so much fun with it. Felix won every match because he's easily played the most. I don't know where he's found the time. It has that kind of same frenetic, everybody slightly failing a little bit vibe that so many party games have kind of lent on over the past sort of 10 years. Even something like Mario Party to a degree. But when you do attempt a trick and it actually goes off and it lands in the butt, it is unbelievable how good that feels, just because it feels like such a hurdle with the controls, at least to begin with, that when you actually sort of like get it down, you're like, yes, no, I get it. It's like Neo in the Matrix seeing the code finally. But realistically, I don't know how much I'm going to be playing this game. You know, am I going to be playing it in a year's time? I don't think so. I don't know that's not the case, and maybe they're bringing in a load of new stuff down the line, but I don't know. This doesn't strike me as a kind of Splatoon in terms of its support. After launch, I'd love to be wrong, but I can't help but feel that this is a good idea and a fun idea. But it needs more meat on its bones for me, you know? The core experience is excellent, but it just needs more. I like the game a lot. I love how there's this sort of high skill floor in order to be able to even control the game, and then the ceiling being so much higher beyond that. Like, you can pick up the game. You can't just pick up and play. This is not a pick up and play game. But when you get it down, it's very satisfying, but you are nowhere near ready to like properly take on like the hard bot fights, for example. That skill ceiling is absolutely astronomical, and I can't wait to see what some people do when they've actually had some proper practice.